The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom begins underground, with Link and Zelda exploring the deep caverns below Hyrule Castle and encountering an ancient secret, the imprisoned body of Ganondorf, the Demon King. Breath of the Wild tells the story of Calamity Ganon, a primal evil that has endured over the ages. Impa tells Link that this evil has been turned back time and time again by a warrior wielding the soul of a hero and a princess who carries the blood of the goddess. With the passage of time, each conflict with Ganon faded into legend. Tears of the Kingdom reveals that this primal evil is the coalesced hatred or malice of this imprisoned Demon King, who has been trapped here, held against his will, for the Kingdom of Hyrule's entire history, thousands upon thousands of years. The most recent Great Calamity, 100 years before Breath of the Wild, was so violent that it brought Hyrule Castle to ruin, which functioned not only as the seat of the royal family, but also to protect the seal on Ganondorf. With the seal weakened, Ganondorf grew stronger and stronger, until finally he breaks free. The sealing hand falls away, and the secret stone on its back drops to the ground. The Demon King channels his power, and with it cripples Link and the Master Sword, and collapses the imprisoning chamber. Zelda falls, and Link jumps after her, but misses. Zelda's latent powers, amplified by the secret stone she picked up, send her back through time, all the way back to the age of the imprisoning war that led to Ganondorf's seal in the first place. Link wakes up on the Great Sky Island, and the game begins. Link's goals are to locate Princess Zelda, and, of course, find and defeat Ganondorf. Tears of the Kingdom ends as it began, deep underground. And for my money, it's the greatest final sequence of any Legend of Zelda game, which is incredibly high praise. That's putting it above the climaxes of Ocarina of Time or The Wind Waker. And yeah, I think that fits. Tears of the Kingdom is by no means a perfect game, but when it's at its best, it's peak Zelda. Let's revisit Tears of the Kingdom's final boss fight, and why I think it's the greatest of its kind. When Ganondorf awoke, his gloom pushed Hyrule Castle into the sky, raising it up on a column of stone. The very base of this column is Gloom's Approach, an area of the depths infested with thick, root-like tendrils of gloom. Through a monster-infested cave, Link discovers the crumbling, poisoned ruins of ancient Zonai stonework, the same ruins that Link and Zelda would have explored as they journeyed deeper and deeper below the castle in the prologue. Indeed, Purah's diary, written shortly before the upheaval, reads, "A stairway leading deep beneath Hyrule Castle has been discovered." Even Princess Zelda didn't know about it, so it seems safe to assume it's a secret removed even from royal legend. We have confirmed that gloom emanates from that location, meaning something down there must be causing it. I appointed Princess Zelda and Link to investigate. And sure enough, Gloom's Approach leads to a great staircase, winding its way down deeper into the earth. At the very bottom, the evil aura radiating through these halls is strong enough that it banishes the avatars of Link's allies, the sages he has awoken throughout his journey. The power of a sage cannot reach him. He is alone. Deeper into the bowels of the castle, Link returns to the caves where the prologue began, the Forgotten Foundation. In the time since Ganondorf's awakening, these tunnels have become infested with his monsters, and gnarled roots of gloom burrow through the stone. They lead through into the Mural room, where wall carvings depict the imprisoning war, maybe as a way of immortalizing history, or perhaps as a warning of what was once sealed nearby. Piles of cracked stone hide the rightmost murals, which couldn't be broken during the prologue, but now can, revealing the story of Zelda, the time-traveling princess who became a dragon. These murals always existed. Zelda had always travelled back to the past. Tears of the Kingdom's story is a closed time loop. Before the adventure even begins, Zelda's journey is literally set in stone. A doorway on the right leads down into what was once the imprisoning chamber, now a vast chasm, emptied by the eruption of Gloom during the upheaval. This was the abyss into which Zelda fell, and without fear, Link dives. At the bottom, there are the littered ruins of the platform Ganondorf was imprisoned on above, and a single torch. The same one Zelda was holding when she fell. By this point, the music, which has been building throughout Link's descent, is almost feverish, echoing chanting amongst scattered, descending piano notes. The atmosphere in this place is like nothing else in the Zelda series. Not even Ganon's castle at the end of Ocarina of Time or Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild are as epic and oppressive and foreboding as this. It really feels like you're somewhere you should not be, travelling deeper than ever before into the lair of the Demon King. There's one final drop into a gigantic chasm, a void punctured by a glowing red platform. Twisted red roots of gloom can be seen all throughout the depths, and particularly beneath Hyrule Castle, and here seems to be their source. A colossal, warped tree formed from the Demon King's dark magic. This place is called Gloom's origin. If the roots throughout the depths are arteries, this is the heart. It's a dark reflection of the Great Sky Island, where a great tree can also be found. Raru's voice note says, "The lives of our people and this tree are interconnected. As we prospered, so too did it. It was the site for many of our rituals, and though that role has since been taken up by the Temple of Time, I am sure this sacred tree watches over us still." And deep below the ground, there's another tree whose toxic roots thread through the entire world, spreading gloom. Just as gloom drains Link's heart when he touches it, we can assume that these roots are draining vitality from the world itself, pulling power towards this central point, towards Ganondorf himself. It's such an effective way to visualize the sheer, horrifying power of Ganondorf. It's hard to gauge his strength from his magic alone, but here we can see that his mere presence in the depths has caused this enormous structure to grow and spread. At the base of the tree, gloom coalesces into an army of Ganondorf's monsters. Bokoblins, Moblins, Lizalfos, even Gibdos. But Link isn't alone anymore. The sages, not the spirit avatars summoned by his hand, but the sages themselves, appear behind him. Tears of the Kingdom is a game about connections, about bringing people together to fight a common foe. And here, in the deepest, darkest abyss, Link's allies fight by his side against an army. The mechanics of this battle itself aren't anything particularly special, though I've never found that the Wild Era game's combat systems translate too well to larger scale battles. But still, this fight is elevated by the sheer spectacle and the emotional weight of what's happening here. You're taking the fight to the Demon King, with your friends at your back. Once the waves of darkness are repelled, Ganondorf reveals his next trick. He summons the game's main bosses. This can be a boss rush, just like in Breath of the Wild's Hyrule Castle, but if you've awakened the sages, they'll tell you to go ahead while they fight them off. Previously, these people needed Link to defeat these monsters, but now they have the skills and confidence to do it themselves. Link enters the tree and discovers Ganondorf, sitting in meditation atop a shrine-like structure. Just as the tree itself is a twisted mirror of the sacred tree on the Great Sky Island, this place is like a nightmarish parody of the Shrine of Resurrection, where Link awoke in Breath of the Wild. At Hyrule Castle, Reju suggested that Ganondorf must not yet be at his full strength, and so this explains the Tree of Gloom. He is draining power to rejuvenate himself after thousands of years of imprisonment. Ganondorf expresses his disappointment at Link, saying that it would have been more satisfying to overcome a worthy foe. This is something that Tears of the Kingdom doesn't touch on enough in my opinion, but a central tenet of Ganondorf's entire philosophy and worldview is that might makes right, that the world established by Rauru was wrong because it allowed the weak to flourish, instead of rewarding strength. He gathers his gloom and uses it to restore himself to his original form, a Gerudo warrior without equal. His appearance was designed to capture his philosophy. It deliberately evokes the essence of Japanese military generals. He draws his sword, and Link does too. The fight against Ganondorf is the best duel in the Zelda series. We've seen a good number of these fights before, like the Dark Nuts in the Wind Waker, Demise in Skyward Sword, and Ganondorf himself on multiple occasions, but none of them quite reach the heights of this one. Ganondorf is, in many ways, Link's exact mirror opposite. He uses every weapon class, one-handed, two-handed, spear and bow, and he can perfect dodge and flurry rush just like Link. And he's so clearly loving the battle. He mocks Link when he hits him, and taunts him when he evades attacks. The music during the first phase starts slow, with ominous horns and choirs, before it breaks out into a frenzy, with frantic drum beats, and, of course, Ganondorf's theme. And the fight escalates in such an incredible way. After dealing enough damage to Ganondorf, he'll recoil in shock, but he's happy. Link has given him what he so desperately desired, a challenge, the thrill of battle. And just like he had thousands of years ago, he uses his secret stone to amplify his power of darkness, and transforms into the Demon King. Here, the game uses its UI to raise the stakes, by having his health bar continue far past where you'd expect it to end. There aren't any numbers here, so they could have just had a central health bar that took more hits to deplete than his previous form, but the fact that it continues far to the right is equal parts hilarious and terrifying. He calls back to the beginning of the game. Enjoy these final moments. I will be taking far more than your arm this time. Ganondorf spawns phantoms, and just like in the fight against his army, the sages arrive to fight alongside Link. But amidst the chaos, the true Ganondorf keeps his eyes only on Link. The music here calls back to Ocarina of Time, using the motif from the Ganondorf boss fight atop his castle. Mixed in with the Breath of the Wild main theme, and that gorgeous, dark theme from Tears of the Kingdom's second trailer. Once half his health is depleted, he'll pull his phantoms back, and use the gloom to unleash a powerful attack, knocking the sages unconscious. Once more, it is down to Link alone. He smiles and beckons Link onwards. Though he's transformed, he's still the same warrior king, given life by the fight itself. The music changes again, this time calling back to the Calamity Ganon theme from Breath of the Wild. That was merely a phantom, fused with Sheikah technology. This is the true threat. This phase of the fight is far more intense. Ganondorf is stronger and faster than before, and can even counter Link's flurry rushes with one of his own, leading to these brilliant little timed back and forths like a dance. Furthermore, Ganondorf uses the same Gloom attacks he hit Link with in the prologue, concentrated bursts of darkness that cripple any sword or shield used against them. Even the Hylian shield breaks quickly, and they don't just disable heart containers like ordinary Gloom, but delete them entirely, at least until he returns to the surface. However, they can be reflected by the sword that seals the darkness, turning the Demon King's magic back on himself. While you can still over-prepare for this battle by gaining a huge number of hearts or cooking up healing foods to make it fairly trivial, still, it feels brutal, violent. Ganondorf is truly using everything he has to kill Link, but it isn't enough. Beaten by the hero, Ganondorf's body is broken. His spine bends backwards, back into the position he was held in for so long during the seal. But he refuses to lose. In a moment you could read as hypocritical, despite all his posturing as someone who values martial strength, Ganondorf refuses to admit defeat to the better warrior, and resorts to damning himself if it means Hyrule will be his to dominate. He doesn't only believe that might makes right, he believes that he deserves to rule, and nobody else does. He says he'll give up his body, his mind, everything to destroy Link and cast this world into eternal night. He pulls the secret stone from his forehead and, like Zelda, swallows it, transforming into the demon dragon, the polar opposite of the light dragon. In Japanese, this parallel is even clearer. Zelda is the white dragon, and Ganondorf becomes the black dragon, a perfect balance of yin and yang. While Zelda's sacrifice was a selfless act to save her kingdom, Ganondorf's is entirely selfish. He has been beaten at his own game, but refuses to concede. In a way, this scene calls back to the climax of The Wind Waker, where Ganondorf waxes lyrical about the suffering of his people as justification for his crimes. But he doesn't mean it. He isn't a benevolent ruler of a tortured people, he's a madman who wants power for himself. Here, the Ganondorf of Tears of the Kingdom reveals the same thing. His choice to undergo draconification is a glimpse at the true character beneath everything, a selfish, power-hungry lunatic. As the demon dragon winds its way out from Hyrule Castle with Link in its jaws, it bears an uncanny resemblance to the very first time we set eyes on this iteration of Ganondorf, the beast in the castle, seen from the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild. Ganondorf's malice took the form of a giant serpent, coiled around the capital of the kingdom, an echo of the beast he would eventually become. In this light, in the final battle, the Wild era has come full circle. Link brings the Master Sword to bear against the beast he saw years ago. The demon dragon ascends and drops Link from its jaws, and the light dragon catches him. The two dragons face each other, just like the game's logo, with Link caught in between. The trio, bound by fate, are together once again, in the skies above Hyrule. The final battle against the demon dragon involves skydiving down onto its body and destroying the eyes along its back. It's by no means difficult, in fact, it's one of the easiest fights in the game. In this way, it feels very similar to the Dark Beast Ganon fight in Breath of the Wild, which is more of a playable cutscene than a real boss fight, and involves riding around the beast and shooting at targets. The Demon Dragon is certainly in the same vein as this, but in my opinion, it gives you just enough agency, just enough of a challenge to make it work. And of course, while the Dark Beast Ganon fight is a spectacle, this final battle is in another league entirely. It's similar to the Kolgara fight, which is my absolute favourite boss in the game outside of this final sequence, with Link diving through the open skies to tackle something truly gargantuan. The music throughout is just perfect, an epic, sweeping rendition of the main theme. It's not particularly fast or upbeat, but it sells the sheer scale and magnitude of what is happening here. A final battle in the open air against a seemingly impossible foe. It's not only one of my favourite boss themes, it's one of the single best pieces of music ever put in a video game. It's truly beautiful, and such an incredible way to end the game. Once the targets on the demon dragon have been destroyed, the blood moon appears. The sky turns a violent crimson, and the secret stone on the dragon's forehead begins to glow. The stone he stole from Sonia, the stone that began the entire imprisoning war. One final strike with the Blade of Evil's Bane destroys the demon dragon and brings Ganondorf's story to an end. Immediately, Link's hand begins to glow, and the screen fades to white. He appears in a spirit world, floating above the light dragon, and a stream of light flows from his hand and towards the dragon. Though she was led to believe that the act of draconification was permanent, Link here appears to use recall, the power to rewind time, amplified by the spirits of Rauru and Sonia, to reverse it. The dragon disappears, and Zelda takes its place, back to her original form. This is one moment I'm still conflicted on. Zelda's sacrifice is so powerful because we're told it is permanent. Learning what she did to protect her people is such an incredible moment, and truly leaves you in awe at the kind of person you'd have to be to undergo such a transformation, knowing that it will permanently change you. I can't see how Tears of the Kingdom could have ended without saving Princess Zelda, yet seeing her turned back here, even if the mechanics of it do make sense given Recall's power to reverse the flow of time, does undermine this sacrifice somewhat. But what comes next is perhaps the single best moment in the Zelda series, and I don't think that's too much of an exaggeration. Link wakes up, upside down, hurtling towards the ground, and far below him is Zelda, falling just like she did at the very beginning of the game. Link had failed to catch her underground. He would not fail again. The final playable moment in Tears of the Kingdom is diving to catch Princess Zelda, getting closer and closer until Link reaches out. And just like he touched hands with so many friends and allies throughout his journey, he grabs Zelda's hand. And the two land safely in a lake. Yeah, this section really is just a playable cutscene. You can't fail here, you can just fall forever if you like. But still, the decision to give us this moment, to let the player control Link and dive to make this final catch, is so powerful. I teared up playing this for the first time, and it still gets me every time since. Tears of the Kingdom's final sequence is, beyond a doubt, my favourite of its kind in the Zelda series. Descending into Ganondorf's lair instills such a feeling of dread and trepidation, and then, on the opposite end, battling the demon dragon in the sky is so incredibly thrilling and cathartic. And in between, there's one of the single best fights in the Zelda series. It's mechanically satisfying, it's emotionally satisfying, and it's all presented so brilliantly. I still have a conflicted opinion on Tears of the Kingdom as a whole, but I've always said that it represented some of the highest highs of the Zelda series, as well as, unfortunately, the lowest lows. And while there are still some things I don't love, like a final extra cutscene with the sages and Minoru that falls somewhat flat, the final sequence is Tears of the Kingdom and The Legend of Zelda at its very best. Whatever the next game in the series is, its final boss has one hell of an act to follow. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't already for more Zelda content. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.